And welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Experience, the Target Individual Program. Again, we reach another juncture in which, after they've been targeting me uh, extremely heavy with the remote no monitoring. Yesterday, I started again having the ice pick headache. Insomnia, you know, has returned, you know, to where I'm up all night. you know, I'm still up. I got up around. I think I went to bed yesterday around. It was about, I would say, 4 in the afternoon. A little something after 3, something like that. Minutes of 4, and I got up around 1 o'clock, and I've been up ever since. On top of that, still with the remote no monitoring, also my computer, my Wi-Fi. Right, whenever I turn off my computer or Wi-Fi, um, it shuts off. And again, it never really happened because I have it connected to the network automatically. But every time I shut it off, and the reason why they do this again is to always try to test my memory, see if I remember my Wi-Fi password, right? My network name, because again, it's on a hidden network. So my network name and network password. This is why they continue to do that. So they target me heavily. Um, if I do remember my password, right? Again, is to avoid. They're trying to avoid accountability for doing what they've done. And again, you start to see them using family members because again, when you see when they recruit family members to do this, right? They themselves also don't want to be held accountable because they want you as a target individual to believe that this is all in your head or what have you. Despite everything that's happening, you're still trying to push that notion. Okay, despite the countless videos that I recorded in terms of showing exactly what it is that they're doing, and having these teenagers in the house, walking up and down talking about, oh, there's demons in here and all this nonsense. It's a whole bunch of bullshit. You know, I'm a demon, right? So I recently bought my nephew's daughter a one of those fold-up beds because she's been sleeping on her computer chair and the other chair for months now, and no one have ever taught to um, say, let me, her father's there. Her father's right there. I'm not expecting her grandmother, her aunt, to do anything, but her father's there. And for months, and knowing how bad my back injury is, I got tired of seeing her sleeping like that. So I went to Walmart and I got one of those fold-up cot beds. Comes with a mattress and everything like that. And you know, but again, when you're conditioned a certain way, like I said, we as particularly as Black people, we are no longer in touch with our humanity. We are no longer in touch with each other in terms of care, concern, um, you know, empathy, you know, but individually, we want other people to be empathetic, want other people to be concerned, other people to have consideration for us, but we don't want to do that for anybody else. And we all have I'm saying we all, but the vast majority of us have that mentality. So if you think that way, the other person think that way, then this is what's going to happen, right? You start to lose your connection with one another. And make no mistake about it, this is white supremacists' plan. This is white racists' plan for us as a people. And it's succeeded. It's succeeded because they've weaponized many things against us and caused us to have animosity, anger towards each other, without realizing the bigger picture, without understanding what's really going on. So we are stuck in this cycle where we pass dysfunctional way of thinking, dysfunctional behavior uh, to our children, right? And they grow up being dysfunctional people and interacting and engaging with other dysfunctional people, right? So we don't understand that, and religion is continue to be pushed more heavily now because again, religion has been weaponized against us, and we refuse to see that, particularly Negropeans, right? They refuse to see that. When you get to a level of awakening, when you start to see religion for what it is, as a control mechanism, as lies, as hypocrisy, as contradictory, then you begin to understand. And the only how you're going to come to that conclusion, which is what they don't want, is because when you get knowledge, when you seek out knowledge, when you understand the truth, right, you will find those things where you start to look and see, you know, like I remember when I was younger reading the Bible, indoctrinated with the bullshit. And when you start to do your research, start to understand what's really going on, when you start to, then you go back and read the Bible again, and it's funny. You look at things, you start to question things more and more. Things that you never thought about, you begin to think about, and then you start to see that it doesn't make sense. But the religiously blinded individual don't see that. They don't ask the important questions. They don't see the contradiction. They don't see the hypocrisy, right? They don't understand certain things. And I give you guys an example. So while Christians always looking up to the sky for heaven, where in the Bible, in the so-called Savior, Jesus tells them that heaven is within you, God is within you, right? But still they look up in the sky for God, and they still look up in the sky for heaven. But I understand that God and heaven is within you, right? And it's within, and yes, in heaven it can be considered many things. It can be considered your environment, your surrounding. It can be as and I love Dr. Yosef Ben Jacome. He always says, heaven is between the legs of a black woman, because this is why every black man trying to get back into where they were born from, right? So I always find that to be very funny. But many things can be heaven. For me, black women are my heaven, and your state of mind, your consciousness. The term you have God level consciousness, right? Meaning that when you understand, comprehend, you look at nature, yourself, everybody else as being part of an ecosystem of life, and you're part of that creation of life, right? That makes you a God. Because in the Bible, what it says, right? God made Adam and Eve, right? And what happened when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit of knowledge, right? What did they say? Remember, they. Okay? They. When you read the Bible, it says they. They said, man has become like us. It didn't say just God. It says they. So those things that you read in the Bible, when you're religiously blinded, you don't question those things. You don't think about those things. Your mind is just believe, and that's it. No thinking. And this is the problem today. And it's been the problem, not just today. But, they've been trying to bring me back into that fall of Christianity, which I will never go back into, because once you see the truth, you can never go back to the lie. It's just the way it is, simple as that. For those who want to pretend, right, because they know the truth and want to pretend because they don't want their lives to be disrupted, they want to keep their friends and all this stuff, all right, what it shows the type of person that you are willing to sacrifice yourself, right, in a false belief system, just because you want to keep friends, just because you want to associate with people who are believing in nonsense. So you gotta make a choice. My choice is living the truth, not going back to any religious belief system, not doing that. Trying to live your life as constructive and positive, despite the fact that we as TIs, being targeted, had been experimented on. For those of us who've been in this program for well over 2-3 decades, even 4 decades, right? And so again, trying to throw me off my purpose, one of my purpose, which is exposing them and what it is that they've done and they continue to do. Right? So regardless of how they when they hit me with those technologies, silent sound, they were energy weapons, you know. So regardless of whatever fear or worry I may have, I still able to overcome those things. Because you see, I still do my videos. Like I said, I still observe what it is that they're doing, so I can let others know, document it, so people know exactly what's going on. And like I said, going forward, uh, when they do this to anybody else, they would not be as successful because people will be aware of what it is that they're doing. Okay, and they will no longer hide it, because like I said, they love to use they love to use the mental illness label when it suits them, even though they have caused us as TI psychological damage, right? Even though they've caused us neurological damage, physical damage. Okay, and despite doing all these things, they can turn around and say, okay, you know what, this person is fine. There's nothing wrong with this person physically. There's nothing wrong with this person neurologically. There's nothing wrong with this person psychologically, even though you have the proof and the evidence. But it is a narrative that they try to set. Okay, now I have to go get my medication, and the one thing they've been doing again is to try to avoid accountability, is to try to threaten me that if I leave outside my apartment, I'll be arrested. So this is why they use the cops. Again, Coercive Persuasion Program, and go look it up. Okay? And as a matter of fact, I may come back and do a video later on, just a refresher on that so people can understand exactly what. I'm going to cross-reference it to Zoom, as well as QuantaPro, as well as a government institution, police department, who will use the psychiatric labeling, right? So they can get away with their corruption. So particularly when police officers blow the whistle on things that within the department, the first thing that they do, and if you don't believe me, go look it up. The first thing that they do against these police officers who are whistleblowers is what they do is psychiatric reprisal. They use the psychiatric institution and labeling to discredit those officers. And this is after the fact. Okay? So before, there was nothing wrong with them psychologically, but then they start to blow the whistle and say, hey, this is happening. All of a sudden, psychological evaluation, labeling them as being crazy, because they understand they've always used the psychiatric institutions and psychiatric labeling to do what? To discredit people. And one of the ways they can take away a person's rights in any country is to label them psychologically incompetent. Okay? This is why they do what they do. This is why sometimes when I come home and they want to, whatever's going on in the house, what have you, right? All of a sudden, like I say, make up your mind. One day you call me crazy. The next day I'm not. Make up your mind which one it is. Right? Because I want you to understand when you talk about ritual abuse, and there's ritual abuse, there's judicial abuse, there's legal abuse, there's law enforcement abuse. These things have a label because they exist. Psychiatric abuse. Okay? These things have a label because they exist. It is not a figment of the imagination of any one of us. Zoom was not a figment in the imagination of the East Germany's citizens, who were subjected to threats, humiliation, poisoning, all sorts of things, drugging. Same thing they do here in the United States. QuantaPro is not a figment of the imagination of black people. Okay? The government allowing drugs to come into the black community is not a figment of the imagination of black people, even though that's what they try to say. So they call black people paranoid in the 80s and early 90s. Go look it up. Right? And what they will, like I said, what they will do, okay, is that now when they'll put the label on you, then they'll run their coercive persuasion program or their brainwashing program or their psychological program, right? their psyops, and then when that takes a toll and it affects the individual who is now psychologically damaged, then they say, okay, see, we told you, right? And because no one understood that there was an external factor, external factors in which led to the individual becoming that way, they just take it like it is. They just believe it. There are industries in which the U.S. government have created, okay, because of corporations, and particularly big pharmaceutical companies, so they can use you and I, the public, to fund an institution for profit and to put money in the pockets of those within the U.S. government. You don't believe me? Any doctor who has discovered any cure for anything, right, will not get an FDA. And I just talk about the documentary I was watching. We have a doctor who was in the 80s. Again, it's a white doctor. And the funny thing is that you had a black doctor, you had a white doctor, Dr. Sebi and Dr. Brzezinski, who one was treating cancer without chemotherapy and was successful at it, right? And the FDA came after that doctor, destroyed this man's career, put him in, literally did everything to turn this man's life upside down. Same thing with Dr. Sebi. Both went to court, both won their cases against the FDA. Okay? How many people know these things? How many people know these things? So again, it really, uh, constantly, I wouldn't say surprise me, but it really shows me just how much control that those in power have over us as people. And they continue using religion, using lies, propaganda, using various tactics, methods. And particularly for us as black people in this country, we're even more under control than anybody else. Right? Because of the agenda by the white racists who will use other groups of people against us, who have created programs to disenfranchise us, to keep us at bay at a certain position, and to remove all the black leadership. Okay? All the black leadership. And this is why you start to see police officers now behaving in a manner prior to Ferguson, right? When everything really blew up on police departments across America. Now they have gone back into those sort of behaviors, right? And it's more blatant now. Why? I keep telling you. Directed energy, radio wave, microwave frequency control technology. And this is why you see things that is happening. Here in New York, a lot of police officers are moving to Florida, particularly white police officers are moving to Florida. Why? Because Florida is a safe haven for police officers who want to commit crime on the general public, particularly on black people. Florida is one of the states that basically passed laws in secret to do what? So that white people can murder black people and get away with it. Right? So again, and they will use, like I said, and they will use everything in their arsenal, everything in their book that try to um, uh, kill us, particularly black men, incarcerate us, institutionalize us, to remove all the black leadership. And I always talk about Dr. Peter Bergen in a video that he did called "In the Minds of Men." And he talks about how when they arrest these black civil rights leaders in the 70s, how they would take them to the psychiatric hospital, right, and basically perform lobotomies on them, right, basically perform brain surgery on them. Again, I talk about a lot of things, but people You know, I always say, that's what now, not how I always say, but there's a saying that says that the people who they're calling crazy, the people who they're still trying to discredit, those are the people you should be listening to. Because most of these people will tell you lies. They will tell you lies. Politicians lie to us all the time, and we believe it. Though we get nothing tangible out of it. I think it's black people. We get nothing tangible for our votes. But they know how they condition us. They condition us to believe the lies. And so they continue to lie, and we continue to believe them. So, with that being said, keep believing the propaganda, keep believing the lies, because uh, in the end, and if you have kids, your kids are going to be repeating the same thing, going through the same issues, even worse. And it's not going to be just black people. Okay? It's going to branch out into other communities as well. Because eventually, these people will develop the mentality, and they have that mentality, but you start to see it now within, even within the police department, where you have police officers just basically sometimes terrorizing white people too. And these are white police officers. Because when they get to a certain mentality, it doesn't matter what color you are. What matters to them is that they can exert any force against you or anybody else, and they can get away with it. All right, with that being said, I will speak to you guys in the next video.